workers are feeling, what's important to them, what they're looking for, really some great research which can hopefully help you in not only attracting employees, but also retaining them to your workforce. So we conduct this research every year at Employbridge. We have an incredible team, our Employbridge Insights team, that oversees this survey and combs through all the data and publishes this report and shares it with you. I can tell you that the majority of the workers are in the industrial supply chain space, but we also focus in on the clerical workers, healthcare workers, gig workers, what's happening in hospitality. So we're really trying to provide you with the latest and greatest insights on what people are looking for. So let me just kind of share with you what we are going to go through today. We thought it would be beneficial to maybe start with a little bit on the overall labor market and share with you the latest statistics of what the government is reporting in employment data. We also are going to share with you proprietary research, which we call our EB Market Intelligence Tracker. And this perspective is really what employers are saying, where they are focused, where they're investing, and what they're doing to attract and retain workers. Then we will get into the Voice of the American Workforce Survey, and then also wrap up with some recommendations for you to help you with making sure you keep your employees productive, engaged, and that you do retain them. So let's go ahead and get started. We will take a look at the overall labor market first. And, currently, we are looking at the data that was just reported the first week of May. So this is the April jobs report. And when you look at the overall data, you can see, we are still in a fairly tight employment market. We're at 3.9% unemployment. April were 175,000 jobs were actually created for the month. And then when you look at prime age labor participation, it still is pretty high. Prime age labor participation is anyone that's really between 25 years old and 55 years old. If you look at overall labor participation, we're at about 62.7%. So opportunity certainly to get more of the younger workers involved with the workforce. We are seeing that people above 55 too are kind of staying in the workforce as well. But there's some room to improve on overall labor participation. What I will share though is that when you look at this data and you look at the headline numbers that come out every month, it still looks like we're in a pretty robust job market. But if you break down the data, you will see that most of the job growth is really coming from certain sectors. It's coming from the government sector, it's coming from leisure and hospitality, and then healthcare. Those three sectors have been making up the majority of the job growth. Unfortunately, we haven't seen jobs come back as strong in manufacturing, in construction, and the temporary help sector has actually been struggling as well. So that is actually one thing I did want to share with all of you today. If you look at this chart, you can see all of the temporary help services jobs that have either been created or lost on a monthly basis since January of 2022. If you look at these numbers, you would see that the temporary help industry has actually been in a recession. Now, usually these numbers would point to a leading indicator that the economy is slowing down. However, this indicator has not really shown up, obviously, in the stock market and in many other sectors. When you look at corporate earnings, they've still remained very strong. But we have seen that employers have cut back and they have let their temporary workers go. And there's a few reasons for that. I think we've seen companies tightening their purse strings, focused on, cost containment. They're trying to hold on to their permanent workers. We've also seen with inflationary costs, they've been forced to make some changes. And then we also are seeing the influence of artificial intelligence and robotics and automation that could be eliminating some jobs. It's still really too soon to say exactly what's happening or if we are going to see a strong rebound in temporary help. But unfortunately, this is a sector that has been hit pretty hard over the last 2 years. We'll be watching this closely on June 7th when the government releases the latest employment data for May. And hopefully we start to see an uptick in these numbers. I can tell you the overall industry is optimistic that we will see a strong end to 2024. Now, the other areas that I wanted to dig into a bit are just taking a look at the overall professional and business service employment compared to pre-pandemic levels. And we can see that overall, professional services actually did rebound and was a bit stronger, even had some growth, but that has kind of fallen off, and we're about even where we were with the post for pre-pandemic levels. We also have seen that the quits and separations are slightly elevated, but they have come down a bit. And I think what we're seeing is as there's some softness in the overall job market in these sectors, people are less likely to quit their job and go somewhere else. So we're seeing those quits rates really start to decline. Now, I shared with you that we would cover some proprietary data on what employers are looking for and what's top of mind for them. So we started this research a little bit over a year ago, and this is something new that Employbridge has really invested in. But our Employbridge Insights team wanted to get a good understanding from employers, not only our customers at Employbridge, but just overall in the US. What do hiring managers think? What are some of the biggest challenges that they're facing? And what really remains top of mind for them? So if you look at this data kind of by quarter, you can see that in Q3 of 2023, employers were really concerned about inflation, retaining talent, and economic uncertainty. Those were the top 3 things that were most important, kind of top of mind to them. And, when you look at retaining talent being number 2, you have to remember we were just coming off, 21 and 22 being some of the strongest years for job growth. Job postings had got up to over 12 million jobs in the United States in 2022, but we have certainly seen a decline. We're down to about 8.8 million today. If you fast forward to Q4 of 2023, the top 3 things, again, inflation, economic uncertainty, though, came in second, and then retaining talent was still in the top 3. Also, a skills shortage kind of moved up to number 4, having a hard time really finding the skills. Employers have been struggling with that. And then if we look at most recently, the data that we have for January and February, inflation is still a top concern. Increasing wages has bumped up to the second spot. And I think companies are really feeling the pressure there. They've raised wages quite a bit, and they're feeling pressure to continue to do so. And they want to focus on retaining their talent and certainly getting them upskilled. Now let's take a look at where companies are actually making some investments. What we've seen is that the pandemic changed the way that both employers and employees really thought about and approached work. And so in response to the pandemic, we saw that companies wanted to become more flexible and offer flexible workforce schedules. They definitely focused on pay. Pay for the last few years has continued to increase month over month, year over year. But we also saw some other trends start to emerge. There has been much more of a focus around health and overall wellness of employees. And companies want to really put programs in place to offer more balance and have more of that health-minded focus for their employees. Better benefits is also something that's top of mind and certainly an investment. And so these are really the top things that employers have invested in since the pandemic. Well, you might be asking, okay, well, what are they going to think about next? Well, we asked them. They anticipate that there will be some additional investments that they're going to make. So as employers are kind of looking ahead at 2024 and certainly 2025, they're really focused on creating a better work environment, trying to find ways to offer more flexibility and expand that because they see that employees really love the flexibility, and that can be a key thing to certainly retain workers. They acknowledge that they need to improve and add other benefits, and they are looking at building kind of more of that permanent workforce. What I was thrilled to see in this research is that they're also investing in training and upskilling their workers. We all know in the world that we live in today, especially with advancements in artificial intelligence and technology, we all need to keep up with the times. And we're going to need to train our workers to understand how to work with new technology and new tools so that they can be more productive. And the only way we're going to do that is to bring our workforce along and certainly invest in training. And in a couple slides, you'll see employees want that as well. So that could be a really great opportunity to connect because employers are recognizing they need to do it and workers are saying, yes, we're ready and we want to improve and upskill because they realize they have to. So that is a little bit of the employment, the market intelligence tracker that EB has just released. Again, so hot off the press, we'll be constantly updating the data around what's important to employers, where are they investing, and what are they predicting for the future. So more to come on that. I love this new research that Employbridge has invested in, and a huge shout out to the team that leads this work. So now we're going to switch gears. We've talked a little bit about the labor market and what's happening with the overall job market. We've talked about what employers want. Now we're going to get into the voice of the American workforce. And like I said, this is our 18th edition of this research. It's always fascinating to see kind of what's changing and what is important to workers. So to give you kind of a high level, and you know, we love to say that the American workforce has spoken, again, one of the largest surveys of its kind. It is so fascinating to see what is important to workers. So the top three things that we're going to dig into today, first, of course, we'll talk about pay, because pay always comes as a top motivator. But there are some other things that we're going to dig into that they're looking for, and that is around advancement opportunities and what's really going to keep them in the jobs and keep them employed and staying with you as an employer. So we have some good data around that. And then we're going to get into the hot topic of upskilling and training. So let's start with pay. For years, as I've mentioned, we've done this research, and pay has always come out as a top most important answer when our survey respondents take this survey. So again, we saw that it was number one, but what was interesting is that that number actually did decline a little bit. It's trending down. So I think you're seeing that workers have received some of the pay increases over the last few years. I can tell you 5 years ago when we did this research, it was extremely high because we had not seen pay rates really keep up with the consumer price index. And so they were struggling. Pay was not competitive. But over the last few years, I do think that the overall US workforce has really moved the needle around pay. And so, of course, it's still important. Certainly in the inflationary climate that we all live in, it's going to be a top priority. So I would expect next year when we do the research, it'll probably be number one, but good to see that other things are coming up as more important as well. What is interesting is when you look at the top three, advancement opportunities came in at number 2, and that was an increase over prior year. And then enjoying the work and flexible schedules came in the 3rd and 4th position. If you look at the professional workers, some of the percentages were even a bit stronger. So I wanted to call those out. Professional workers being in the clerical, even administrative, accounting and finance, technical engineering roles, they're looking for advancement opportunities. They responded to the survey and said that 39% said that was one of the most important things to them in looking, whether it's for a new job or what's going to keep them out of job, is they want to be able to have that career path and see where they can go in the future. Again, they want to enjoy the work that they're doing. So finding that passion and purpose in the work is super important to kind of have that connective tissue. And I think that that's something that companies can really do, is try to connect those dots, making sure the employees are finding that purpose in the work and enjoying what they're doing. Flexibility is a hot topic and continues and remains to be super important. We do see that many employers are talking about bringing people back into the office, but you will see that workers are saying, we still want flexibility. We want to be able to have a flexible schedule. Maybe it's a hybrid schedule. So those are all things that are kind of coming in, in the top 4 spots of what's most important when they're looking for a new job. Now we're going to kind of ask them, what else would they look at other than pay? So we like to ask the respondents, about what can companies really do to earn your loyalty? We know pay is most important, so let's put that aside. Again, advancement opportunities, top of the list. Having good benefits is extremely important, but also consistent work opportunities. They want to keep working and be productive and to be challenged. So that was very interesting. If you look at professional service workers, again, they want advancement opportunities, they want flexibility, good benefits, a good company culture is very important, and they want paid time off. So these are some things just on this list that you can see is what's going to keep them at your company, what is going to earn that loyalty. Another one that I want to call out that's in the top there is treat me with respect. I think that one is extremely important. People need to feel respected in their work environment. And we have some more research that I will share with you in a few slides, which kind of speaks to that, on why employees might leave an employer. Now, I mentioned our research is very focused on overall supply chain. So we do see obviously different shifts in the supply chain environment. So we have a lot of data around, what people are looking for. I don't think there's going to be too much of a surprise here, but most workers are really looking for kind of that traditional work week. But what's interesting is that many workers would actually prefer kind of a 4-day work week. So we're seeing that more and more. We're also seeing companies thinking about that. really tracking productivity along with that to see if they do move to a 4-day work week, 10-hour days, if they're getting the same productivity or more productivity, if employees have that extra day off. So shifts is always kind of an interesting thing. When you think about professional, it's mainly, the traditional work week. But 70% said that they would work, the 5-8 hour shift. 51% said they would prefer, an 8-hour shift. So again, it's something that we see more in the supply chain, manufacturing, logistics, transportation. But shift preference is very, very important. Pay is probably the piece that kind of enters the equation here when you look at having different shifts, even in a professional, maybe a call center environment, where you need people to work kind of different shifts. Having that shift differential can really make a difference because pay is so important. If you have a pretty strong shift differential, you definitely will work kind of those different shifts. We also asked employees the question of what would they prefer more? Would they want to have a pay increase versus kind of paid time off? And what we've seen through the research is 69% actually said that they'd like to have 5 additional days of PTO. And when you look at that, if you look at kind of a cost comparison there, we took an average $18 an hour, the cost, being $900 a year, versus if you gave an employee a dollar increase, that could cost your company over $2,600 a year. So when it comes to professional workers, they're more likely to want the 5 additional PTO days versus the additional dollar. So I find this fascinating because I think employers really need to think about this as a strategy. Sometimes we think, oh, we got to pay people more. That's what's going to retain our workers. We know pay is important. However, people are wanting more balance and flexibility in their life. And so that additional 5 days of PTO, which costs a company a fraction of what it would be to give a raise, could make a huge difference in employee engagement, satisfaction, and retention. So something to think about from a strategy standpoint. But when you think about what American workers are saying, they are really valuing their time off. And I always like to add in when I talk about paid time off, we need to let our employees take that as kind of protected time off. Let them disconnect, not be on email and on the phone, really let them take their time, protect that time, respect that time, because it's an opportunity for them to kind of recharge their batteries and refuel themselves, that when they come back to work, they're even more productive. So I'm passionate about this topic because I just think we need more of it for our workers, and it helps with work-life balance and stress, and so many benefits can come from it. All right, well, we're going to keep moving into this data. And what we want to get into next is really kind of understanding why workers are leaving their jobs. And what's interesting is that we've seen that there are a lot of job opportunities out there. I talked about 8.8 million open job opportunities. People can go find other work. Though we've seen that quits rate, start to decline, we still know we're still in a good job market. So we need to look at why people are thinking about leaving. So when we did this research, we asked, what are the reasons that you left your last job? And the reason to leave really came down to that it was perceived overall treatment. They felt like they weren't appreciated or treated fairly. That was the top reason. 27% gave that as a reason. When it came to professional workers, we actually saw that it was 28% felt that they weren't appreciated or treated fairly. So think about that from a, just for a minute, from maybe in management or a leadership role. We're all so busy, but we need to really focus, be in that moment with our employees to make sure they know how much we do appreciate them. And of course, treat them fairly across the board. But I was really surprised to see that that was kind of the number one, because I also think that's something that overall, when we look at the US workforce, we should fix that. That shouldn't be the number one reason. The second reason was I found a job that paid more money. Again, that did come down, but that was number two. And number three was I was laid off. The fourth one I do want to call out as well. I felt overworked and kind of burnt out. We've certainly seen that as companies have made layoffs and cut back. They're asking their existing workers to do more. And sometimes we're seeing people really kind of burnt out, in that, and they just decide to kind of walk away and find something else. So those are the top reasons. On the professional side, some other reasons that were a little different than the overall research data was I felt overworked and burnt out was a higher percentage. 24% of professional workers really felt that way. And we did see a higher percentage of people laid off compared to the overall survey. So when you look into this of just what's happening, maybe a little bit more in that white collar space, those numbers really do stand out. All right. Well, I mentioned near and dear to my heart is definitely upskilling and learning opportunities. And that also came through loud and clear in our research. So we asked employees if they are willing to invest time to learn a new skill. And an overwhelming 93% said yes, they want to learn a new skill. 47% they would do it if it was free, but another 46%, which was up, said they were even willing to do it if they were willing to do it, but only if they were paid. So we're seeing some really strong numbers here. I do think that this is something employers need to have a strategy around, because as I mentioned, our environments are rapidly changing. And I do think that employees realize that these learning opportunities will definitely lead to job security. They have to learn new skills. So they're saying they want to do it. Again, 93% said, yes, I will do it. Out of that, again, some are still looking to get paid while they do it, but they're willing to make that investment. We also asked them how many hours a week would they be willing to invest to learn a new skill. And you can see that on the slide here. Professional service workers are even more likely to invest in their training and opportunities. They said that they would invest 3 to 4 hours a week, so 45%. So we need to know that about our workers. They are open to it. They acknowledge they need to learn new skills, and they're willing to do it and put in the time that it takes. We also asked them why. Why do you want to learn a new skill? And it did really come back to that primary driver is they want to have the skills so that they can earn more money. They want more stability. They want promotions and job opportunities. They really feel like this is their path to their future. They have to advance themselves. So love to see that they acknowledge this. What we saw from the professional service workers, that 48% said they want to get ready for a new job and a promotion opportunity. They're ready to climb that ladder and continue to move up. And 23% said that they really want to recession-proof their job. They want to keep working. So they do see this as an opportunity to have job security, and they recognize it. All right, So we also asked if Employbridge were to offer the following upskilling or training programs, which, if any, would you be interested in signing up for? Employbridge really has been leading the industry with offering free skills-based training and learning opportunities to our workforce for years. And so we want to know, what do they want to learn? What's of interest to them? And so when you look at the workers, what's interesting here is that across all different industries and sectors, the thing that keeps coming up is they're very interested in automation and robotics. In fact, that was in every area. I mean, even clerical, hospitality, transportation. They know and recognize that they need those skills to remain competitive, to advance themselves. And it's definitely something that, as Employbridge continues to evolve our upskilling program, which we call our Better Work-Life Academy, these are things that we are taking into consideration so that we can meet those demands. All right, well, we've covered a lot of data, from the labor market to also looking at what employers' perspectives are, and then the data around our voice of the American workforce. I hope that you really have enjoyed kind of seeing, all of the high level data of what's important to workers and what they're looking for. We thought it would be helpful to also kind of walk through some recommendations for all of you that will helpfully really help you just think about your retention and engagement strategy. What can you do as an employer to make sure you're attracting the best workers, you've got engaged workers, you're driving productivity, they're living that balanced lifestyle, and that you're ultimately retaining them? Because we know it is extremely expensive to have turnover and be left without workers. So let's dig in to kind of some recommendations that Employbridge has put together. And the top one that I'll start with is really focusing around kind of that long-term career pathway through advancement and upskilling. We see that workers recognize that it's important, but they have said throughout the research and throughout the survey that they want those advancement opportunities. They've also said they realize and recognize they know they need to learn some new skills. So creating pathways for workers to see that they have advancement opportunities, that they can move up in a company, can go a really long way. If you don't have career pathways for your workers today, I would highly encourage you to think about that. And then you can also supplement that with upskilling opportunities for them to learn new things, so that you are really growing and retaining your workforce, which is ultimately going to lead you and your company to much more success. For overall supply chain, we recommend that you look at your shifts often and really see how you can incorporate maybe some different things to attract, and retain workers, offering more flexibility. Maybe it is a trial. Maybe you pilot going to a 4-day work week, or maybe doing something a little different with the shifts that you're offering. So we encourage you to do focus groups with your workers, survey, get research, get feedback. Let them help really craft the solution on what would work. So if this is a challenge, certainly for your company, engage with your workers. They can help be part of the solution. Fair treatment and competitive wages are always important and should be a standard across the board. Make sure that you are creating a diverse and equitable environment, and that you're paying your people appropriately. You can always keep up with the pay rates, and the Employbridge team is wonderful and can be a great resource to you if you're having trouble getting access to local pay data, you can reach out to your local Employbridge representative and they can help get that research for you. But you want to make sure you're paying competitively. You need to have good quality workers. And the way to do that is creating a really wonderful culture and fair environment for people to work in, and then paying them competitively so that they stay with you and they're never going to want to go where they think the grass might be greener. A few other recommendations we have for you is really to think about kind of maybe starting an upskilling or kind of reskilling training program and looking at partners that can help you with that. There might be options locally. There could be trade schools or local schools. There could be online sources. We certainly are happy to share what we're doing at Employbridge with you through our Better Work Life Academy as well. But really spending some time thinking about your current workforce today and what skills are they lacking? Where is your company going? What are the jobs going to look like 6 months from now, a year from now? What new technology are you bringing in? How will these jobs evolve? And what skills do your workers need to have? And think about what resources you have. There's tons of free resources as well available that can really help workers. So encourage you to really think about an upskilling or reskilling program at your organization. Maybe it's something you pilot. You don't have to create some big university around it. You could start with one particular job that you want to focus on, really advancing the skill set in that area, and just let it start to really blossom. So I think that is something I just try to encourage employers across the board, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what sector you're in. We all need to stay up with technology and advancements, and we all need training. So having options for your employees is going to be super important. Again, number 5, we've talked a little bit about creating that respectful environment, but really showing respect and compassion for workers. Especially in today's environment, we know, families are juggling a lot with inflation and the rising cost of housing and food. And you never know what someone is dealing with, personally as well. So it's okay to have compassion. We certainly encourage it, and really that respect. Workers are looking for it. And the more that we can demonstrate that from leadership at all levels of an organization, employees truly appreciate that. And if they don't feel respected, we saw in the data that was one of the top reasons that they actually would leave their job. So something to think about. What are some new ways that you and your company can really focus on showing respect to workers? We mentioned wages before, but we always reinforce this point: wages, wages, wages. It's kind of like real estate with location, location, location. When it comes down to it, you do have to pay competitively. So even though we might be seeing, wages kind of flatten out a bit, we know we've seen a lot of growth over the last few years. We do think that will slow down, but it still is a key consideration for workers. And you definitely want to make sure that you pay competitively and offer a great package that someone isn't going to want to leave your company to go next door. So that really wraps up kind of our recommendations. I just wanted to share a little bit about EB Insights. As I've mentioned before, Employbridge has had some long-standing research that we've conducted, for many, many years. And we now have continued to kind of evolve this group. We have a great team. We're very fortunate to have a team that is dedicated to understanding what's most important to American workers, what's most important to employers, and what's happening in the labor market. So they are on the front lines and constantly reaching out with research and surveys so that we can provide this information to you. So again, the Voice of the American Workforce is our biggest piece of research that we have, longest standing research. The quarterly EB Market Pulse surveys, that's our EB Market Intelligence, again, is something new, but really gives you the perspective from an employer. And then our EB Economic Report is a monthly report, which really gets into all the labor data and economic data and thought leadership that we have. So we constantly are putting out white papers and research, to really help you understand the latest and greatest trends. So EB Insights, our team is unparalleled, in my opinion, and they have some really great stuff to share. So if you want to hear more of it, on LinkedIn and social media, and connect with your local office as well. So with that, I'd be happy to, answer any questions that you may have. I'm going to check the chat real quick and just check with my team to see if there's any questions. I don't see anything. I'll give it a minute though. For those of you that are on the line, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat or the Q&A. I'd be happy to take them. Okay, well, I don't see anything pop up, but I will offer, you can always reach out to me. And I really appreciate you joining me today for this session. I hope you have some takeaways. Would love to hear what you thought of it, and would love to connect with you all. So thanks again, and have a great rest of your week. Take care.